Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are on the second half of chapter 26 in the Gospel of Matthew today. And we're in the final moments with Jesus now. And it's kind of some tough stuff to be reading, especially from a person who tries to look on the sunny side and tries to be positive for the most part. I find that I prefer having to look at it once a year than so quickly after Lent having to think about it again so soon. But I think it's good for us to constantly be holding all of Jesus's ministry in our minds. And so today, what we discover in this part of chapter 26 is that first Jesus goes off to pray, and he takes a few of his disciples, his covenant group, with him. And what I realized when reading this morning is that Jesus really experienced abandonment and rejection on all levels. We talk about, the rejection because he was on the cross and everything. But, he just asks his friends to stay there and be in prayer with him, and they fall asleep. They can't grasp what he's going through. And we've all been in those situations where we just wanted our friends to understand what we were going through, and they might be there with us, but they weren't there with us. And we see that with Jesus. And he goes off a couple of times to pray, and each time he comes back and they've fallen asleep. They're doing their own thing. They fully don't comprehend what's about to happen to him. And so he has this sense of rejection and abandonment from his own friends. But what I also see in it is this recognition that all of us are going to experience times in our lives where other people don't get it. But we can't hold that against them, because that's our journey we have to take, and it's not their journey to take. We can be there, but we cannot be, we can't just recognize that it's our journey and not their journey. And so we see here that Jesus doesn't hold it against them, and he continues to go on with his ministry. And then after this, we then discover that he's finally betrayed. And we see the betrayal happening, and Judas comes, and it's with a kiss. Isn't it interesting that the betrayal happens with a kiss? With one of the most intimate forms of relationship, with this idea of being close to another person, that's the way we betray people. Not through some vicious backstabbing, but through face-to-face with the symbol of love is where betrayal happened. So Jesus is getting hit at every angle at this point in time in the scripture. And even when his friends finally kind of stand up for him and get angry and pull out a sword, Jesus says, no, put down your sword. That's not how we're supposed to respond in these situations. Put down your sword. So Jesus sets a really hard example for us. In the midst of abandonment, rejection, and betrayal, he stays faithful. He sticks it out. And so we see then that Jesus, he is now taken to the high priest, and he is being interviewed. And in this interview, there are times where he stays silent. He says, words are not going to help me at this point in time. And then at other parts in the interview, so to speak, he does speak up for himself, and he speaks truth, even though he knows they're using it all against him. And so we find that, they're just ready. The people are just ready to crucify him. They just want to get rid of him. And so we see this kind of struggle in Jesus. Like, how do you maintain your cool in the midst of all of this? And what he does is he just, that's what he does. He just stays calm, and he thinks about what he's saying before he says it. And he recognizes sometimes silence is the best thing, and other times when he's there, he can speak. And then as it goes on, so he's being interviewed inside of Caiaphas's house. And then verse 69, we now see Peter coming along. And he wants to know what's going on, but this is where his denial happens. And so he's asked 3 different times, are you one of his followers? And he says no. And we find that he weeps bitterly. He weeps bitterly is what it says, realizing what he has done. Throughout the Gospel of Matthew, Peter has time and time again sworn his faith, sworn his loyalty, and he's like, I'm ready to die with you. And then just merely in an accusation, it crumbles. He crumbles under the pressure. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I think we all need to be aware that we probably have crumbling points. There's a sense in which we've all betrayed Jesus. Maybe not any time lately, but one time in our life, or maybe it hasn't come yet, where the fear of what could happen to us causes our faith to crumble. And it might not be directly, it could be indirectly, because I kind of think that's what happened. He was just kind of off taken, he's like, I'm just trying to get closer. He thinks he's doing something to get closer, to know what's going on, but then before he knows it, he's like, no, in my heart I actually denied him. And so I just think it makes us take time to pause. And I encourage you to take time to pause and consider, how are you being faithful, or how are you denying Jesus? Where do you need to have silence, and where do you need to speak up? There's so much going on in our world right now. How are we showing grace and forgiveness in the midst of rejection and betrayal by our own friends? And so, tough scripture this morning, gives us a lot to think about. And so thanks for joining me this morning. We will dive into the first half of chapter 27 tomorrow. Thank you for joining me today with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion. And I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.